Good afternoon, everybody, and I am about to give you another treat. It is Wednesday the 15th of May and time for another book review, my darlings. And tonight's little treat that I'm going to give you is a very old, very classic Richard Laymon, and we are going to do Dark Mountain tonight. This is volume 4 of his collection. It originally was published as Tread Softly by Richard Kelly, but as Richard Laymon became more popular, it has been redone, but in its original format has the copy of Dark Mountain, has that one been done. And you're in for a rollicking, cracking read, my darlings. Two families have come to the Californian Mountains expecting a fun weekend, but no. If you ever read a Richard Laymon book in your life, you will know that camping and fun normally go hand in hand, but not when Richard's families go camping. Sorry. What they will find instead is a violent psychopath and his mother, who's a powerful witch. Yeah, this is seriously messed up. But then again, Richard Laymon, you're gonna get seriously messed up. I'm going to read you the first chapter. By the way, this copy that I have here, was bought for my 30th birthday in 2006, and it is the first publishing in this omnibus edition in 2006 by Headline Book Publishings, but it really came out back in 1987 when I was 11. So that's fun, isn't it? Here we go, part 1, chapter 1. Cheryl heard it again, the soft, dry crunching, a sound that a foot might make in leaves. This time it was very close. She lay rigid in a sleeping bag, barely daring to breathe, gazing straight up at the dark slanting wall of the tent and telling herself to stay calm. It's probably just an animal, maybe a deer. A few days ago, camped in a meadow below the pass, they had been awakened in the night by a deer, wandering near their tent. Its hooves had crashed through the foliage, snapping branches and shaking the ground. Bambi the elephant, Danny had called it. This was different. This was stealthy. She heard it again, flinched, and dug her fingertips into her bare thighs. Maybe something falling from a tree? Pine cones. They could make sounds like that, she supposed. Plenty of wind out there to shake them loose. That's it. That has to be it. Otherwise, somebody is standing just outside the tent, and that can't be. They'd seen nobody for 2 days. They reached lower Mesquite Lake early in the afternoon. Except for this small patch of woods, the glacial lake was surrounded by barren rock. They had hiked completely around it. They had explored the woods. They had seen nobody. Not even when they hiked over a small ridge to Upper Mesquite. Nobody. Cheryl took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. Go to sleep, chicken shit. Cheryl consciously relaxed her legs and rump and back, settling down into the warmth, and turned her head to stretch her taut neck muscles. She felt like rolling over. She wanted to turn face down and burrow deep, but she was afraid to move that much. A monster under the bed, just like when she was a kid, and knew there was a terrible monster under her bed. If she lay absolutely still, it would leave her alone. I'm 18. I'm too old for this. Slowly she started to turn over. Her bare skin made a whispery sliding sound against the nylon bag, almost loud enough to mask the other sound. She went stiff. She was on her side facing Danny. The other sound came from behind her, a quiet hissing sound, a sound such as fingernails might make scraping along the tent's wall. She flung herself against Danny, shook him by the shoulders. Moaning, he raised his head. Huh? What? Somebody's outside, she gasped. He pushed himself up on his elbows. Huh? Outside. I heard him. Who? Shh. Neither of them moved. I don't hear anything, he said in a groggy voice. I did. God, he's right outside the tent. He scratched on it. Probably just a branch. Danny. Okay. I'll go out and have a look. I'll go with you. No point both of us freezing our asses. I'll go. He rose to his hands and knees, still in the double sleeping bag, letting in the cold night air as he searched through his clothes and gear at the head of the tent. He pulled his flashlight out of his boot. Just be a minute, he said. Cheryl scooted away. Danny climbed from the bag and crawled to the foot of the tent. Kneeling there, naked, he pulled at the zipper of the mosquito netting. Cheryl sat up, the cold wrapped around her, shuddering. She hugged her breasts. Maybe you'd better not, she whispered. Come on back. Nah, it's all right. Please. I've got to take a leak anyway, he said. I started to crawl through the flaps. He was halfway out when he stopped. He uttered a low groan. One of his feet reached backwards. Cheryl heard a wet thud. Spray rained against the tent flaps. Danny's legs shot from under him. He bounced up and down, knees pounding the tent floor, flopping in mad spasms. They seemed to last forever. At last, he lay motionless. Cheryl stared in horror as Danny began to slide through the flaps. His buttocks vanished. His legs dragged along as if he were being sucked slowly into a dark mouth. Cheryl was alone in the tent, but not for long. Now you know what you're getting into. I've got to say, Richard Laymon is probably one of the most depraved, disturbed writers I've ever met. I used to think Sean Hudson owned that title, but no, he's positively tame when it comes to Richard Laymon. Richard is slightly disturbed in many ways, and his writings They're what every teenage kid wants. You know, you're suddenly gone from Enid Blyton to reading Richard Laymon. Does that not say a little bit about your disturbed mind as well, fairy? I had a wonderful childhood, and I first found Richard Laymon when I was about 14, 15 years old. Slightly later than finding James Herbert and you know, and all those kind. James was my first foray into horror. I had read the classics like Bram Stoker's Dracula and Mary Shelley's Frankenstein at this point in my life, but I would have been between 14 and 15 when I found The Dark Arts of Richard Laymon, and I can honestly say, as a teenager, he did not disappoint with the level of graphic violence, gore, and sex. Yeah, there was a terrible amount of filthy, horny sex going all the way through anything that Richard Laymon writes, and it's only as I've got older that I have looked back on these books and said to myself, good holy Lord, what was I thinking reading these books, thinking to myself, goodness, at the time they were probably, I didn't understand quite a lot of the adult themes that were going through. You know, I should have just stuck with point horror and you know, and done with that. But no, I picked up books like Dark Mountain, and it is splatterpunk. It's supernatural, witches, evil, psychopaths. What can we say? Horny little teenagers. Yeah. Terrible, terrible. Misspent youth. I wouldn't change it for the world. The first one, Beware, I never got on with it. I didn't like it. I thought it was stupid. A plot of a cult that had turned a serial killer invisible, and it's just way too rapey to even be considered decent literature. But Dark Mountain is a little bit better. But yeah, I didn't really care for Beware. I'd say it was a gross out from start to finish, and no, not a fan. But I did like Dark Mountain. So what I would definitely say, it is quintessentially Richard Laymon. We have two couples and their kids backpacking in the woods, a mysterious witch and a murderous son, her murderous rapey asshole of a son. Ugh. Lots of sex. Yes. Skinny dipping and staring at boobs. Yeah. The situation changes after the attack on the family and the rape of one of the girls. What about the curse of the witch? Will anybody survive the woods tonight? How does their daily life continue? How will it end? Are they all cursed or just one? This novel you'll find it quite compelling, and what was I saying about horny teenagers? Full of wit and teenage lust. Yes. Lots and lots of horror. Lots of murder. Lots of bonking. Lots of violence. Very good fleshed out characters. A well composed mixture of horror, sex, violence. Yeah, definitely. I think it has a little touch of Camp Crystal, if anyone's ever seen the Friday the 13th movie. A little bit of a touch of that. The ending's not what you expect. It's quite gruesome. Yes. Twisted, evil, gruesome ending. Yeah. Read Dark Mountain in October through Halloween. It's a really, really quick read, and that is the chunk of book, right? There's only like 40 chapters, so it's a really, really quick read, and the chapters are so short, but it's quite once you start reading it, you won't be able to put it down. So it is a gross little gem of a book with quite a lot of bonking going on. And now for all you horny teenagers out there that have never read Richard Laymon, bet you can't wait to get your hands on a copy now, eh? Yeah. Part of my misspent youth. And as I'm nearly 50 and I'm looking back on the time that I've spent reading Richard Laymon books, I smile. What else can I do? Am I slightly embarrassed by the fact that I read these books? Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I do cringe thinking now as a mother and a long time married lady. But well, when you're 15, what do you know? You're just experimenting at that age, aren't you? You're finding what works, what doesn't work for you. And yeah, if I want to go back in time to gross out splatterpunk, I would pick a Richard Laymon. Yeah. Yes, he is. He's a disgusting, disturbing person. It comes out in his writing, but he's a good writer. He is a good writer. And I don't suppose he means to be as disturbing as he is, but he found a formula that worked, and he stuck with it, and it paid the bills, I guess. But I'd recommend Dark Mountain over Beware any day of the week. If you're really seriously deranged and love nothing but the gore, give me more, Beware may be the book for you, but it was when I was younger. Why on earth I read it when I was younger, I don't know. I clearly didn't understand a lot of what was going on. Now looking back, I'm like, I read that? Oh my. It's even a bit much for me. Yeah. And I can read some stuff. I can read Jack Ketchum. Yeah. And he's disturbed. Blimey. I think he was in the next cell to Richard Laymon. Yeah. They had him pumping out books while they were in the asylum. Yeah. If you've ever read Off Season by Jack Ketchum, wow. If that doesn't have you throwing up by the end of the book, yeah, I'll eat my hat. But yeah, this is a deeply disturbing take on a camping trip gone very, very wrong, with a witch and a psychopath, a horny little psychopath chasing you through the mountains. Ah, joy. Don't have nightmares, my darlings. And if you fancy having a read of it, it's still in print, and I do believe it is on Kindle as well. And if I can find an audio book with this Dark Mountain story on it, I will be sure to put it up in psychological horror. Well, all it leaves for me to say is happy readings, darlings, and enjoy. Oh, don't read it in the dark, and don't have nightmares.